First arriving on our screens in 2011, Thor introduced us to the iconic Marvel character of, well, Thor, a superhero based around the Norse god of the same name. It would be the first installment in, at the time of making this video, a series of 4 movies, with this series of sequels having arguably the biggest disparity between both good and bad movies.
This is cancer!
Now, I'm not even gonna pretend for a second like people who are watching this video have never heard of Thor, so let's just skip the introduction and get right to the story. Now, in Thor 2011, our favorite god of thunder gets cast out of Asgard by his father Odin after Loki baits him into starting a war with the frost giants of Jotunheim, and of course, Thor being his immature and arrogant self, he takes the bait without hesitation.
Come back home, little princess.
Dad.
Odin deems him unworthy, strips him of all of his titles and powers, and even his mighty hammer Mjolnir, letting us know that only when he is deemed worthy will all of this be returned to him.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
Then earthly and Asgardian shenanigans ensue, and we watch as our hero learns the error of his ways and becomes worthy enough to reclaim his title as the God of Thunder. Though most viewers, such as myself, found it incredibly enjoyable, a large portion of the Marvel-loving fan base accused the movie of being too slow, and with not enough screen time with Thor fully powered up. Yet, upon further reflection and countless rewatches of the sequels, it becomes quite clear that the first Thor movie is actually something special.
This is cancer!
In fact, there are 5 big reasons why Thor 2011 is the best Thor movie.
5! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5!
So starting off with reason number 1, let's just talk about the character of Thor himself. If you showed someone Thor Ragnarok and that was their first impression of the character, you couldn't fault them for just assuming that Thor was simply the comic relief character of the Avengers.
I choose to run toward my problems and not away from them.
That's what.
However, when compared to Thor 2011, it feels like a different character entirely.
I will not fight you, brother! Loki, this is madness! Yes! We know each other! He's a friend from work!
This is because he basically is. Thor 2011 doesn't have our main guy constantly tell jokes or fall victim to goofy slapstick.
You are no match for the mighty!
To an extent, just ask yourself, how would you expect a literal god of war to act if his big coronation day was interrupted by a terrorist plot to steal his homeworld's most precious artifact, only to then get banished to Earth for starting an interdimensional war, all before he could even think about sitting on the throne? Yup, it goes down exactly how you think it would.
Just so you know, I'm speaking calmly, but there is a tantrum brewing in me, the likes of which this mall has never seen.
But it's necessary to establish just how flawed our main character is, giving him room for growth. Wait just 1 second, hold the phone. Did they... Oh my god. Oh, they forgot to take care of the reflection of the green screen that you can see in the floor. Okay, I see why this scene was deleted. Our character needs to be at his lowest low so that the rise back to the summit is all more satisfying.
The Jotuns must learn to fear me, just as they once feared you.
That's pride and vanity talking, not leadership. You've forgotten everything I taught you. But a warrior's patience.
While you wait and be patient, the 9 realms laugh at us. The old ways are done, you'd stand giving speeches while Asgard falls.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
You'll be a wise king.
There will never be a wiser king than you. Or a better father. I have much to learn. I know that now.
And when Thor is at his lowest low, You really, really feel it. And when he reclaims his title as the God of Thunder, you're right there cheering with everybody else because you're like, yes, he's earned it. This makes his behavior in Thor: The Dark World feel like a natural progression, as he's much wiser and more patient, signifying his growth, maturity, and metamorphosis into the wise ruler that Odin always hoped that he could become. Yet, during Thor Ragnarok, we see a dramatic shift in his character.
Then you have seen Ragnarok, the fall of Asgard, the great prophecy.
Hang on. I'll be back around shortly. Do I really feel like we were connecting there?
He goes from being the level-headed god who learned the error of his ways and became a mature leader to a sort of bumbling comedic relief character who falls victim to copious amounts of slapstick humor. This is mostly due to the tonal shift of the MCU in general. While the MCU used humor in Phase 1, it was typically sprinkled in between scenes of real emotional weight.
You lack conviction.
I don't think
So that's what it does.
Now in Phase 2, Marvel tried to overcompensate for all the complaints of them using too much humor by making damn near every movie significantly darker than those in Phase 1.
There are no strings on me.
Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: Winter Soldier, Avengers: Age of Ultron. I mean, these movies were all so much darker than the ones in Phase 1. Yet, since this wasn't handled in the best way, Marvel then did another 180 by not only going back to using a lot of humor, but they also cranked it up to 11.
These go to 11.
Don't even get me started on the movies that came after Avengers Endgame. Woof. The entire MCU after Endgame is such a fever dream that I've already done a dedicated video on that topic, if you want to watch it. In Thor 2011, the movie starts and ends on a serious note. Thor experiences his lowest low, and when he feels it, so do the characters around him and those of us watching the movie. This hammers... Thor pun.
I understood that reference.
This hammers home the reality that his punishment is something that he's gonna have to really dig down deep and overcome. Thor: The Dark World had a very similar feel with the death of Thor's mother, showing us that even gods can experience suffering and loss. Not to mention the score in that scene, it's absolutely brutal, emotionally heavy, but downright beautiful. You compare this to Thor Ragnarok, where the movie starts out with Thor comedically breaking the fourth wall and narrating to the audience like he's Will Smith in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. And what's funny is, Thor Ragnarok is often considered the best movie in the franchise, but this is simply due to it being more of a turn your brain off and have fun kind of movie, which is the type of movie experience Marvel has focused on for the last several years, much to their own detriment. There are a few moments of emotional weight in Thor Ragnarok, but it's vastly outweighed by the overuse of slapstick comedy.
Loki, I thought the world of you. I thought we were gonna fight side by side forever, but at the end of the day, you're you and I'm me. Hey, let's do Get Help.
What? We are not doing Get Help.
Get help! Get help! Help!
Now, for the record, there are some scenes in Thor Ragnarok that still to this day make me laugh, including what is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, when Thor gets back to Asgard and Loki's putting on that play. Another thing that Thor 2011 does better is the world building. Asgard in the first movie feels like a living, breathing homeworld for godly beings. The people who live there feel like real characters. Fast forward to Thor Ragnarok, and Asgard just feels like one big CGI set piece with characters who are fun but cartoonish. In Thor 2011, Asgard feels like Thor's home. Whereas in Thor Ragnarok, it just kind of feels like a place he's hanging out in. The entire destruction of Asgard is just done for laughs.
The damage is not too bad, as long as the foundations are still strong. those foundations are gone. Sorry.
Now in Thor 2011, it wasn't just the care given to Thor and Asgard that made the movie special. As one of the only great villains in the MCU, Loki is also one of its best and most fascinating characters overall. Nowhere is this more evident than in Thor 2011. Look, unless you've never heard of Thor... Look, unless you'd never heard of Thor or Loki prior to 2011, we all knew who Loki was. We all knew that he was one to consistently step over the line.
My man got too familiar, and I ended up having to whip his ass. You know, he would step across the line. Habitually, he's a habitual line stepper.
He's one of the most infamous shit starters in comic book history, and his original Norse mythology counterpart is the epitome of a pot stirrer. Yet, his big screen debut is actually a very bold narrative choice. Rather than just making him a generic mustache-twirling bad guy, Thor 2011 gave us a much more layered version of the God of Mischief. Yeah, it's easy to root for him now after his time in the Loki series, but you have to remember that Loki spent the majority of his cinematic screen time as the constant foil for Thor and the Avengers in general.
It burns you to have come so close. To have the Tesseract, to have power, unlimited power, and then to be reminded what real power is.
However, the Loki we're presented with in Thor 2011 did what it took the MCU another decade to finally pull off, and that was making him a sympathetic character. His motivations for setting up Thor to fail are pretty easy to get behind, as it's very obvious that Thor is not ready to be the next ruler of Asgard.
The Jotuns must pay for what they've done.
They have paid with their lives.
Break their spirits or they'll never dare try to cross our borders again.
You're thinking only as a warrior.
This was an act of war.
It was the act of but a few, doomed to fail.
Look how far they got as king of Asgard.
But you're not king! Not yet.
Loki is a much better candidate as he's smarter, politically savvy, and has the right temperament to be a good ruler. Sprinkle in a little identity crisis over actually being adopted, and he remains a character that you just can't help but feel for.
Why? You were knee-deep in Jotun blood. Why would you take me? Tell me!
I thought we could unite our kingdoms one day.
So I am no more than another stolen relic, locked up here until you might have use of me.
Why'd you twist my words?
You could have told me what I was from the beginning. Why didn't you?
I wanted only to protect you from the truth.
What, because I'm the monster parents tell their children about at night? You know, it all makes sense now why you favored Thor all these years. Because no matter how much you claim to love me, you could never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard.
Yes, Loki is in his element in the first Avengers, and he's entertaining as hell in every appearance he makes. But the emotional depth on full display in Thor 2011, largely due to the brilliant acting of Tom Hiddleston, is another reason why Thor 2011 is so special.
Loki, this is madness.
Is it madness? Is it? Is it?
In fact, the acting is another high point of Thor 2011. While it's clear to see that the actors are having a blast in movies like Thor Ragnarok, it does border a bit on the side of being over the top. Meanwhile, the acting in Thor 2011 feels more genuine.
Yes. I was a fool. To think you were ready.
The burden of the throne has fallen to me now. Can I come home? I'm so sorry. No. I am sorry.
A huge portion of this is during his time on Earth. Spending so much time around the human characters lends the film a more grounded feel. I mean, think about that scene with Thor and the Doctor sitting there in the bar just talking about philosophy and life in general. A scene like that would never happen in Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder.
For the first time in my life, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
No one was ever going to find his way in this world. Let's just start by admitting he doesn't know where the hell he is.
This grounded feel also somehow extends to the residents of Asgard themselves, as they don't feel like actors having a good time. Don't get me wrong, it's a blast seeing Jeff Goldblum and Karl Urban chewing up scenery, but the characters just didn't feel real. So how was Thor 2011 able to manage such a balance? I'm gonna chalk that up to the directing. For the first Thor movie, Marvel Studios decided to hand the reins over to Kenneth Branagh, a British actor, director, and producer known for his Shakespearean work both on screen and in theater. Now this turned out to be quite the brilliant move. Branagh, more so than any other director, managed to make a Thor movie that centered around Thor. Thor: The Dark World tried doing the same thing, but failed to be interesting in pretty much any other aspect. Then you have Thor Ragnarok, which really feels like a buddy superhero comedy centered around Hela. Then you have Thor: Love and Thunder, and I don't even know how to describe who this movie is for or focused on. I mean, is it a Jane Foster movie? I mean, I don't understand. Why is Christian Bale in this movie? None of it made any sense. Kenneth Branagh's background of Shakespeare was the perfect resume of prior job experience to bring these godly beings down to our level.
A character like Thor, who is a whole mixture of things. Intelligent, he's brutish, he's incredibly strong, he's headstrong, he's reckless, he needs to understand how powerful he is and how to use that power. Very complicated in a good way, but he's got to understand what it takes to acquire some sense of proper leadership. And to do that, he has to be brought to contemporary Earth. Family, dynastic story that's also about, it's about fathers and sons and mothers and daughters, ancient feuds, sibling rivalries.
When you compare that to the background and directing style of Taika Waititi, it's quite clear why the franchise feels so tonally conflicted with itself. Now, I love Thor 2011 and Thor Ragnarok.
It's my birthday!
But at the end of the day, Thor 2011 is the best and purest Thor film in the franchise. Yes, the moments of action and comedy are more reserved and used more sparingly than the sequels, but that just makes it more impactful when those moments actually happen. If you don't appreciate the subtlety of Thor 2011, that's okay. We all have different tastes. But as a hardcore Thor fanboy, I like my Thor how he's accurately portrayed in the first movie. Yes, he's flawed, but that just makes his climb back to the top feel all the more rewarding. The ever-changing style of his character feels like how content creators vastly change their style once they start going viral. You understand that they're just doing what their audience responds to, but at a certain point, it's at the expense of the original vision. I encourage everyone to give Thor 2011 a rewatch so that we can be reminded of how the character started, as I truly believe that Thor 2011 is the best Thor film.